Ladies and gentlemen, gentle ladymen. I've got a ute, I wanted a canopy. Canopy should be here in a few months, but in the meantime I've sold the tray. So in this video we're going to look at how you can make some brackets up using the chassis body mount and just some cheap steel that you get from Bunnings. I've got a trailer light bar, you can buy them from Super Jeep Auto, Repco. It plugs into my tow ball, and then I just went and bought some wheel guards from a trailer shop. Then I just need to attach my license plate to something, and hopefully that's all road legal and I can drive it around in its chassis form. So we'll see how we go. This is the state that it's in at the moment. It might be that I have to pack this and this mount out just to get it a little bit higher, especially if this bolt gets in the way. So you can see the chassis has mounting points. There are 6 of them, 3 on each side. So I'm going to go an M12 bolt through there. I'm just going to run tube from here to the front, and then off that tube I'm going to run 2 bits of tube across, which will sit here and here. The original tray had quite a bit of distance off the tyre. This one, these wheel guards won't sit as high, but with the tray gone there's 230 kilos less compression on these leaf springs, and nothing can get loaded in the back now to compress it more. So the reason I've gone with 50 by 50 and then 25 by 25 instead of a flat bar is just to get that height so the wheel arches sit away from the tyre. I've also gone and bought some plastic packers just to pack it out a little bit more if I have to. I can cut these up with a hacksaw, maybe a grinder if it doesn't destroy the blade. This is just the bracket for the fuel filler. M12 bolts will go to the chassis. These M10s will join the 50 by 50 post to the 25 by 25 that runs perpendicular. These M8 bolts, there will be 4 per mudguard, 2 at the back, 2 at the front, going through this 25. And these M6s here are just for the mud flap. You see the mud flap has 3 holes. I will probably use all 3 of those. Just got some basic tools here, obviously hearing protection and eye protection, grinder, hacksaw. Going to cut up rubber in between surfaces for a little bit of compression and a little bit of shock absorption. This is basically everything I need. Obviously safety glasses and a long sleeve shirt for grinding. Hearing protection, hand protection, eye protection. And I've changed into long sleeve, protects your arms a little bit when you're grinding. There's going to be sparks and stuff like that. And being high visibility just makes you stand out a bit more from the crowd.
Sorry mate, didn't see you there.
That's okay.
Bye.
So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Now let's have a look. 4 of these plastic spacers, they're 20mm thick. I'm going to cut these in half so I have 8 to work with, and I'll show you why. With this, it's hitting this bolt here. I don't know if you can see that, but not by much. If I just raise that a little bit over this bolt, that's what these packers are for. Just going to cut these with a hacksaw just to minimise the dust, and I'm not sure if at high RPMs the blade would burn out. It's a nice straight line, straight enough to be a sparky. So next we're just going to mark this to cut. Just going to go outside to outside of the chassis brackets, 1270. Change to long pants, continue with the grinder. After that we'll drill some 12mm through our packers, and then we can mount these and see how it looks. Once we cut this down to 1275, we'll go 45 in and 1235 in, drill our M12 holes, and that'll line up perfectly with the chassis. So we've got M12 holes in here, M12 holes through the spacers. Cut some of this up to lay down underneath the spacer. So what I've got under here, I've just got 1 washer, and there's the bracket. You can't see, but there's a little bit of rubber there, the spacer and the bar. And now getting the shape of this, measure and cut. So I've bolted these on. With the cross beams in and the wheel arches hung over, I can get a proper idea of how much space I have around the wheel. So I'm pretty happy with that the way it is. I'm going to put 20mm spacers in here, this lip being about 30mm. I'll mark some notches here just to drop that onto the spacer underneath. It's not much, but it'll keep this distance from the tyre rather than having it drop 30mm. We'll have M8 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, same on the other side. The other thing we'll have to do is M10 bolts through the 25, through the 50. These cross beams, 25 by 25, they are 2.1 metres long. So I'll probably leave about a 5mm gap here and cut that. The good thing about having it all in place is I can just mark it as it sits. So on the other side as well, we've mounted the fuel filler, which this will attach to at the end. So it's roughly square. I'll just measure that to make sure when I drill the holes it's perfectly square. After the 2 bits of tube from bracket to bracket got mounted, I've placed everything else in. I've marked it up for cutting and drilling. Measuring off the cab, I'll show you, it's easier. So measuring off the cab, measure and mark these lines. So when it's removed, we'll drill a hole in the middle of these 2 lines, 25mm in, which is half the 50mm post. And then mark this line. Using a straight edge, you can mark these lines. That'll allow us to measure off 25mm to drill this hole. Wheel guard's 300, so I've just gone 100, 200. To get it straight, I've just used a 600mm level, roughly in line with half of that tube, which we'll drill. I haven't marked these up, but we'll drill 3 holes for the mud flaps. I've just marked out where I want my little notches to go on the inside and the outside. That is square as it sits now, equal distance from here to here, as it is on the other side at the very ends. Now I'll just take it all out, cut, drill, nut and bolt, put it together, see what it looks like. Okay guys, we've finished all the drilling, cutting, drilling the spacers, drilling rubber. I've got all the bolts in loosely. Just going to go through now and tighten them up, starting with the M12s, the M10s, M8s, M6s, etc. So here we've got a M12 by 100. We've got the nut, the flat. In between this packer is a cut of 1.5mm rubber, 20mm packer, 50 by 50 tube, flat and bolt. Joining the 50 by 50 to the 25, we've got M10. Same situation, it's just a little bit of rubber cut from the metal to metal mating surfaces. This is the exact same on the other side. In here I've done 2 M8s. I've got nylocks on the M8s. I've cut notches to allow that to sit. Now this is only temporary, so I didn't spend too much time cutting the notches out cleanly. You can see under there I've put in 20mm packers. These bolt heads will go up, so they'll be far away from the tyre. At the back we've just got 3 M6 for the mud flaps. This will have the mud flaps about 200 from the ground. Same again on the rear. There's a bit of rubber, just flat to either side. So I've got nylocks for the M8 and the M6, the M10 and 12 I don't. Okay guys, I've finished bolting everything together, so we'll just have one more look at everything. Just go until the post starts collapsing and that's tight enough. I could have ordered shorter bolts here, but that's fine like that with the packers in there. Plenty of clearance around the wheels. So one more thing that I did, I've just cable tied some rubber strips, 2 rubber strips around here, just to protect all this in case it vibrates while I'm driving. It is supported by a bracket, but there will be some vibration. These edges are not sharp, these are rounded edges, but I just wanted to be extra safe. So the frame's all finished now. We've got to look at mounting some brake lights and indicators. I've got this trailer light bar with a 7-pin plug from Super Cheap Auto. I've tested it, it works fine once plugged in. So give me brake lights and indicators. Just got to find somewhere to mount it. Now I've taken the end caps off just so I can look down to see where the cables are run, so I know that I'm not going to drill through it and completely ruin it. This is where I've decided to mount the light bar. At the moment it's just balanced on the chassis. You can see all of the angles here. They stop it from sitting upright. So where it's sitting now, it is upright, and that is where I'm going to mount it. I'm going to be using old bits of timber left over from the building of this house. I'm going to butt it up to here, run the timber along to here, and then I'll screw through the plastic where we're clear of cabling into that. That'll sit upright. So the use of timber is for no other reason than I've got COVID and I'm isolating and I can't actually go to the shop to get anything else. This is all I've got. I don't have the right size screws to go through the 50mm tube yet. But basically I'm just going to make it up, stick it in place, see what it looks like, and then once I'm out of isolation I'll be able to go get the finishing touches. As for the license plate, it's just going to be nut and bolted straight through the light bar because it's just a plastic hollow tube. Got to cut these with a handsaw because I don't want to clean the mess from the circular saw. I did consider doing a little chop out here so it will slide under, but there's no point, basically. Got the two pieces of timber in here. Just want to go as high and low as we can through here into here, making sure we don't hit the cables in here. With the license plate, I'm going to center it and then nut and bolt it through here. I'm not going to use screws because there's no meat to this to hold it. The excess cord, I'll use whatever split conduit I've got. Otherwise, I'll try and make safe and tape it up somewhere. I'm currently in quarantine, so I can't go to the shop to get the bits that I need to finish it. Alright, so I used what I could around the house. I found some bolts and stuff to mount the license plate. I don't have any wood screws that are long enough to go through the 50mm steel tube and then into the timber, and I don't have any square washers to clamp down. I'll show you. Okay, so this is basically as it will be when it's finalised. These are 40mm long, so you've got 25 there and then 15 into the timber, which isn't a lot. I do want to replace them with something longer once I can get back to the shops. Now this timber I used because it's all I had in the house. It's actually worked out better than I could have imagined. It is the perfect thickness to sit between this cable loom and yet hard up against here. Lines up perfectly to here. Now what I want to do, probably just stick with one, but I could arguably put two in here. I want a thicker screw. Something like a hex head, but this obviously isn't long enough. Something long enough to go through here, it's just 50. This here is 45. So draw this out, pre-draw the timber at a slightly smaller size to help it go through. Clamp that there. We'll assist this, which will be longer. This isn't very strong at the moment. Here I want to get another hex head screw with a square washer that hangs over this lip. And as I tighten the screw, it'll pinch this timber to that. That will hold it down to the chassis and it'll also keep it straight this way. Some larger cable ties, which will work as a redundancy for the square washer that'll sit here. It won't only be a redundancy, it'll also help keep that force down. So these cable ties are not holding that upright. Two screws here and here that run into this timber. So with this mounting arrangement, all the support up and down is on the chassis. These screws here hold it into the timber, but they don't have to take much weight or you don't have to apply much force because this plastic's quite weak. You don't want to put too much force through it. It took me about half an hour to get all the cable into split conduit. I was lucky enough I had some spare in the garage, two different sizes, but it worked. So I've just cable tied that along using all existing holes. I'm never going to drill a hole in the chassis. Coiled any excess length here. That is hanging there at the moment. Down here I've got my reverse camera. Now this is annoying to mount. I need two separate bits of metal because the reverse camera itself gets in the way. So this reverse camera will sit about there. Probably won't give me the best reverse angle, but at least it will be reverse angle. And I need two thin bits of metal or plastic, doesn't matter. It's just going to be two strips hanging down here so they can go either side of here because it's blocked in the middle by the camera. There'll be a nut and bolt through here, same as I've done with the license plate. With the license plate, I would have got away with just the two top bolts with nylock nuts, but I chucked the bottom ones in because I found some extras in a drawer. Alright guys, so I had the ute in a halfway position. I was going to release the video, but I've decided now that I'm out of quarantine, I'll finish it off. Hopefully this is the last thing that I've had to purchase. So I've got some thicker gauge and longer wood screws. These will replace the 40mm screws that I had temporarily put in. These are M10 coach screws going through a 50 by 50 square washer with an M12 hole. This M6 gear here is to hopefully mount the reverse camera, which will go through here, and I'll make 2 strips out of this to hang the reverse camera. And we've got 4 M8 by 100 bolts. We'll go here and here. So we'll do some prep work before we fit this. Just gonna drill out a 7mm through here, which will assist this going in. And then we'll do this up with 18mm socket head. This is pretty soft timber, so you sort of got to be careful. You can't put as much pressure as you might like. And we've got cable looms on the other side, so just be careful when you go through. So I've just cut a strip of rubber here to protect the metal to metal surface. I think that's about as tight as I want to go. It's quite soft wood. Now I'm just going to stick some cable ties around here that are thicker than these ones. Alright, so next thing we're going to swap out this 40mm with a thicker gauge 65. I'll take this out and show you the difference in how much bite we get. So that's the 40 I had in there, that's the new one. So by the time we go through the 25mm tube, see there's a massive difference in the amount of grip we're going to have in that. So that's tight, a lot of grip in there. So drilling out these holes, I want to go a certain size through both sides of the tube, but I only want a smaller size to go through the timber, just to pre-drill for the thread. So I need an M10 to get this bolt through, but I only want to drill the timber at maybe M6 so I can maintain some thread grip as these go through. Alright guys, so basically what I've done here is grip a drill bit as loosely as I can because it's not very long, and I haven't been able to get all the way through the other side of the timber. I've gone 80% through the timber. The coach bolt will be able to work the rest of the way through. 16mm. Bing pot. So that's pretty sturdy now. 2 bolts there and this clamp, which has applied a lot of force. Changing this screw up here to a 65mm. So I'm going to change these 2 screws out for 65mm since I've got them. And then I'm going to cut this strip, make up a bracket for the reverse camera, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright guys, we're all done now. I'm just going to put thread locker on the M12 and M10 bolts, and that's it. Everything else is done. I'll show you what it looks like and I'll put the costs up on the screen. Hopefully this helps you. You might have better ideas, or you might be shit and have worse ideas. Anyway, so this is the final result. Got the reverse camera hanging off 2 little strips. And I didn't do the bolts through the license plate because I didn't want to ruin it, so I've just bent the license plate around it for now. Work-wise, you need some basic tools. It's easier with a grinder. Obviously, you need a drill. It's a good 5 or 6 hours if you have all the materials. It's taken me a bit longer because I've had to do a few trips to the shops when I could, and then just scavenge around the garage for materials afterwards. Hopefully that helps you. You can drive around without being pulled over, but there's no guarantees. If you do get pulled over, at least they'll be able to see that you've made an effort. Just, you know, be safe. All right, skanks, on to the next bit.